Did you know it's possible for two people to have a face-to-face conversation and have one person switched out with another person without anyone noticing? Yep, the conversation continues as if nothing happened. Unbelievable, right? Welcome to the channel. Here are 30 jaw-dropping facts you won't believe are real. Fact 1. Bracken Cave near San Antonio, Texas. The world's biggest bat cave, it hosts about 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats roosting there from March to October, the largest concentration of mammals in one place on Earth. The bats emerge in a massive swirling column at dusk, creating a spectacular natural event that attracts researchers and wildlife enthusiasts. These bats play a crucial ecological role by consuming vast amounts of agricultural pests each night. Bracken Cave is protected and managed by Bat Conservation International to ensure the safety of the bats and their habitat. Fact 2. NASA and international space agencies are working on establishing a lunar time zone, tentatively called Coordinated Lunar Time. This is necessary because time moves slightly faster on the Moon than on Earth due to relativistic effects predicted by Einstein's theory of general relativity. Since the Moon has weaker gravity than Earth, time on the Moon runs about 56 microseconds faster per day compared to Earth. This difference may seem small, but for precise scientific measurements, navigation, and communications in upcoming lunar missions like Artemis, a standardized time system is crucial. The European Space Agency and NASA are actively discussing how to define and implement this lunar time standard, which will help coordinate activities among different nations and missions operating on the Moon. Fact 3. Change blindness is a well-documented psychological phenomenon where people fail to notice significant changes in their environment, especially when their attention is momentarily diverted. One famous experiment demonstrating this was conducted by psychologists Daniel Simons and Daniel Levin in the late 1990s. In their door study, a researcher approached a pedestrian to ask for directions. During the conversation, two people carrying a door walked between them, momentarily blocking the view. When the door passed, a completely different person, who was of similar build but had different clothing and facial features, continued the conversation as if nothing had changed. Remarkably, about 50% of participants didn't notice the swap. This experiment illustrates how our brains prioritize general awareness over detailed visual processing and how expectations can override actual perception. Change blindness is often exploited in magic tricks, filmmaking, and even eyewitness testimonies, where people might miss important details without realizing it. Fact 4. Sequoyah, a warrior and silversmith of the Cherokee Nation, could not read English but observed the talking leaves, writing, of the white man in 1813. He thought it was a military advantage, so he developed the Cherokee syllabary in 1821 entirely from scratch, assigning symbols to syllables rather than individual sounds like an alphabet. Cherokee literacy rose rapidly, and by the 1830s an estimated 90% of the Cherokee people could read and write in their language, a rate higher than most European American communities at the time. The Cherokee published their own newspaper, the Cherokee Phoenix, in 1828, further spreading literacy. Fact 5. Skunk cabbage, or Symplocarpus foetidus, a plant native to North America, has the fascinating ability to generate heat through a process known as thermogenesis. This allows the plant to produce temperatures that can be tens of degrees above the surrounding environment, enabling it to melt its way through frozen ground in early spring. This unique ability is especially useful for the skunk cabbage, as it allows the plant to bloom even when snow and ice are still present on the ground. The warmth generated by the plant helps it to maintain its growth and produce its distinctive, foul-smelling flowers, which are a characteristic of the skunk cabbage species. Fact 6. Max Planck was advised by his professor not to pursue physics because almost everything is already discovered. This advice came at a time when classical physics seemed to have answered most of the fundamental questions. Despite this discouragement, Planck went on to make revolutionary contributions to the field of physics. Max Planck is best known for developing quantum theory, which became one of the cornerstones of modern physics. His work on energy quanta, introduced in 1900, laid the foundation for what would become quantum mechanics. He proposed that energy is emitted or absorbed in discrete units called quanta, rather than in a continuous flow, which was a groundbreaking idea at the time. In recognition of his contributions, Max Planck was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1918. His work not only helped shape our understanding of the atomic and subatomic worlds, but also paved the way for the development of technologies like semiconductors, lasers, and quantum computing. Fact 7. Brendan Grimshaw, a British journalist, bought Moyen Island in the Seychelles in 1962 for around £8,000. Over the decades, he planted more than 16,000 trees, introduced and bred Aldabra giant tortoises, and transformed the island into a lush sanctuary for wildlife. He lived as the island's sole inhabitant for much of his life, until his death in 2012. Despite receiving offers as high as $50 million, he refused to sell the island because he wanted to preserve its natural beauty. Instead, Moyen Island was officially declared a national park in 2009, and it is sometimes referred to as the world's smallest national park. Fact 8. The cocktail party effect refers to our brain's remarkable ability to focus on a single conversation in a noisy environment, such as at a party. This ability allows us to concentrate on one person's voice while filtering out the background noise. Additionally, we are often able to detect certain key stimuli, like hearing our own name, even when we weren't paying attention to the conversation. The cocktail party effect demonstrates how our brain can selectively tune in to relevant information, even in complex and distracting situations. It's a form of selective attention which allows us to prioritize certain sounds or conversations over others. Fact 9. The platypus doesn't sweat. The platypus lacks typical sweat glands, so it doesn't regulate body temperature by sweating like humans or some other mammals do. Since it spends most of its time in the water, sweating would be ineffective. Instead, it relies on cool water and its dense fur to regulate temperature. The platypus has thick, insulating fur that traps air, keeping it warm even in cold water. If it sweated, the moisture would get trapped, making the fur heavy and less effective for insulation. The platypus has a low body temperature for a mammal, around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or 32 degrees Celsius, compared to humans at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This means it doesn't produce as much excess heat, reducing the need for sweating. Fact 10. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own epitaph listing 3 accomplishments. Being the 3rd president wasn't one of them. He described himself as the author of the Declaration of American Independence, author of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. Interestingly, he did not include being the 3rd president of the United States despite it being a major achievement. I would consider it a major achievement if everyone watching this video hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I know you've heard it before, but it really does help the channel. Thanks you. Fact 11. There is a lichen-forming fungus native to Antarctica and Patagonia called Shackletonia, named in honor of explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton. The name Shackletonia was given as a tribute to Shackleton's adventurous spirit and his contributions to polar exploration. Interestingly, this particular fungus is part of a unique ecosystem in extremely harsh environments, showcasing the resilience of life in some of the most inhospitable places on Earth. Fact 12. It is possible to measure heart rate using a weighing scale. Researchers have developed weighing scales that can measure heart rate by detecting tiny shifts in a person's weight caused by the force of blood moving through the body. Advanced digital scales equipped with highly sensitive sensors can detect these tiny variations in pressure. The scale analyzes these weight shifts to determine the user's heart rate and even other cardiovascular metrics like pulse wave velocity. Studies have shown that ballistocardiography, BCG, the measurement of body movement caused by blood circulation, can be used in smart scales to estimate heart rate and even detect early signs of heart conditions. Fact 13. Beaufort's Dyke is a deep trench in the Irish Sea, located between Northern Ireland and Scotland, and has been used as a dumping ground for surplus munitions since World War I. Estimates suggest that over 1 million tons of conventional and chemical weapons including artillery shells, bombs and mustard gas were dumped there by the UK government. The primary concern remains the decaying munitions, which have occasionally washed up on nearby shores, particularly after seabed disturbances caused by pipeline construction and storms. Fact 14. You can't legally buy Jack Daniel's whiskey from a retailer in the town where the Jack Daniel's distillery is located, since it's a dry county. The Jack Daniel's distillery is located in Lynchburg, Tennessee, which is in Moore County, a dry county. This means that, under Tennessee state law, the retail sale of alcohol is prohibited in the county. However, there is one exception. The distillery is allowed to sell commemorative bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey on site as a souvenir. While you can't buy a regular bottle in a liquor store there, you can legally purchase these specially labeled bottles directly from the distillery. So while it's technically illegal to sell liquor in Moore County, Jack Daniel's has found a legal loophole to offer its products to visitors. Fact 15. Vivian Maier, a quiet and private nanny in Chicago, was discovered posthumously to be an incredibly talented street photographer. She had taken over 100,000 photographs of everyday life in the 1950s and 60s, but never showed them to anyone. Her undeveloped film was only found after her death, making her one of the most celebrated photographers of the 20th century. Fact 16. Britain was connected to continental Europe 9,000 years ago during the Mesolithic period by a strip known as Doggerland. It stretched from modern-day Britain to the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. Rising sea levels after the last ice age gradually submerged Doggerland, and by around 6,500 to 6,000 BCE, it was largely underwater. Today the North Sea covers the area. Fishermen and archaeologists have discovered ancient animal bones, tools, and even evidence of human settlements beneath the sea, confirming that Doggerland was once home to prehistoric people. Fact 17. The film Top Gun: Maverick was actively supported and influenced by the United States Department of Defense and the United States Navy to present the U.S. military in a positive light and aid in recruitment and retention. The Pentagon has a long history of collaborating with Hollywood, especially with films that portray the military in a positive light. For Top Gun: Maverick, the Navy provided access to real fighter jets, including F/A-18 Super Hornets, naval bases and aircraft carriers for filming, and technical advisors to ensure accuracy in portraying naval aviation. In exchange, the film had to follow military guidelines and be reviewed by the DoD to ensure it aligned with recruitment and public relations goals. Fact 18. The Cretaceous-era turtle Calocaeboscion bajazidi was named by Baron Franz Nopcha von Felso-Silvas, an eccentric Hungarian paleontologist. The name Calocaeboscion comes from the Greek words kalos, meaning beautiful, and kiboscion, meaning box. So, it translates to beautiful box. The species name Bajazidi honors Bajazid Doda, who was Nopca's lover and secretary. Nopca, a pioneering paleontologist, was also one of the first openly gay figures in science, and his relationship with Bajazid Doda was well known. Fact 19. In 2022, an 18-year-old student who did genealogical research as a hobby cracked the unsolved 1964 murder of a 9-year-old girl in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. He researched for 18 months and created 50 complete family trees to find a connection to Hazleton, which eventually led him to zero in on the culprit, James Fort. Fact 20. Timothy Clark Smith, who lived from 1821 to 1893, was a 19th-century doctor from Vermont who had a strong fear of being buried alive, a condition known as taphophobia. His grave in Evergreen Cemetery, New Haven, Vermont, is indeed unusual. It features a glass window positioned over his face, supposedly allowing people to check if he had been mistakenly buried alive. However, the window has since become too clouded to see through. Fact 21. The bumps on the heads and around the mouths of humpback whales known as tubercles are actually sensory hair follicles. These tubercles are covered in stiff, sensitive hairs that are believed to play a role in helping the whales navigate and hunt, though the exact purpose is still not fully understood. Some researchers suggest that these sensory hairs may assist in detecting vibrations or changes in water currents, which could help the whales in sensing their environment, locating prey, or even communicating with others. But the exact function of these sensory hairs remains a topic of ongoing study. Fact 23. Retired schoolteacher, Mary Ann Ansley, lived a modest life in Tennessee. When she passed away at 91, her family discovered she had secretly amassed a fortune of over $7 million in rare coins and gold bars hidden in coffee cans around her house. No one knew how she had acquired them, but some speculated she had been an anonymous coin collector for decades. Fact 23. In the weeks leading up to D-Day, due to the enormous stress he was under, General Dwight D. Eisenhower was smoking 6 packs of cigarettes, drinking 24 cups of coffee, and averaging 2 hours of sleep every day. Eisenhower himself acknowledged the toll this stress took on his health, and he later spoke about the difficult choices he had to make in preparation for the invasion. His dedication to leading the Allied forces during such a high-stakes time clearly took a physical and mental toll, and he had to rely on unhealthy habits to manage the pressure. Fact 24. Far beneath the Pacific Ocean at the core mantle boundary, there are two continent-sized natural structures called Tuzo and Jason. These structures are large low-shear velocity provinces, or LLSVP. There are two main provinces, the African LLSVP and the Pacific LLSVP, both extending laterally for thousands of kilometers and possibly up to 1,000 kilometers vertically from the core mantle boundary. These have been named Tuzo and Jason respectively, after Tuzo Wilson and W. Jason Morgan, two geologists acclaimed in the field of plate tectonics. Some theories suggest they influence volcanic hotspots such as those in Hawaii and Iceland. Fact 25. Famadihana is a true and culturally significant tradition in Madagascar. Famadihana, often referred to as the turning of the bones, is a funerary ritual practiced by certain Malagasy communities. In this tradition, families exhume the bodies of their ancestors from tombs or family crypts, rewrap the remains in fresh cloth, and sometimes dance with the bodies. The names of the deceased are also often rewritten to ensure they are always remembered. This practice is deeply rooted in respect for ancestors and is seen as a way to honor the deceased while reinforcing family bonds. Fact 26. In 1999, a man from the United States who had received a bone marrow transplant to treat leukemia later found that after the procedure, his blood and semen had the genetic markers of the donor rather than his own. The bone marrow transplant had replaced his own marrow with the donor's, and since bone marrow produces the body's blood cells, including those in the bloodstream, the new marrow carried the donor's DNA. This resulted in a surprising change to the genetic makeup of the man's blood and semen, which was quite unique and unprecedented at the time. However, it's important to note that bone marrow doesn't typically affect every cell in the body. So while the DNA of the donor was present in his blood and semen, the rest of his body still retained his own original DNA. Fact 27. In 2014, the children of an elderly New Jersey man, Juan Pujol Garcia, discovered after his death that their quiet, mild-mannered father had actually been one of World War II's most successful double agents. He had worked as a British spy, tricking the Nazis into believing he was helping them, and played a key role in misleading them about D-Day. His true identity was only uncovered when declassified records were released. Fact 28. That an official map of Michigan once included two fictional towns, Goblu and Biatosu, in reference to the football rivalry between the University of Michigan and the Ohio State University. The map was produced by the Michigan State Highway Department in the early 1900s. Goblu refers to the University of Michigan's famous rallying cry, "Go Blue." Biatosu is a playful jibe referring to Beat OSU, the slogan used by Michigan fans in hopes of defeating Ohio State. The map sparked controversy at the time but also became a part of Michigan football lore. Fact 29. Gabriel's horn, also called Torricelli's trumpet, is a famous paradox in mathematics. It is a geometric figure that has infinite surface area but finite volume. It is created by rotating the function y equals 1 over x, for x greater than or equal to 1, around the x-axis. The surprising result is that, while the volume of the horn is finite, the surface area is infinite. This means that in theory, you could fill the horn with a finite amount of paint, but you would need an infinite amount of paint to coat its surface. Fact 30. Christian Slater donated his entire salary from the film Interview with the Vampire to all of River Phoenix's favorite charities. After the tragic death of River Phoenix in 1993, Christian Slater stepped in to take on the role that was originally intended for Phoenix in the movie Interview with the Vampire. Phoenix, who had been a rising star in Hollywood, had been an advocate for various social causes, and Slater's generous gesture was a way to honor Phoenix's memory and his philanthropic efforts. There you have it, 30 jaw-dropping facts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing content.